Welcome back to another installment of Everything NHL. I'm your host, Nathan, and we're here with our hockey expert, James Kumar.
Hey, what's up, man?
So this week we're gonna go over the fantasy goalie rankings. James here, he made his own rankings, so we're gonna compare it with the Yahoo rankings, and we'll go, I guess, 5 spots at a time. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll start with goalies and then we'll get to some defensemen after. And yeah, sounds good.
All right. So I guess I'll start off with the first five. So that's going to be Andrei Vasilevsky, Robin Lehner, Darcy Kemper, Connor Hellebuyck, and Igor Shesterkin. Those are the Yahoo rankings, and we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, so I agree with the first one. I have Andrei Vasilevsky first. He just seems like the most logical goalie to take first. He is going in first rounds of drafts. And I mean, his stats are solid. He plays for Tampa Bay. There's not much else to say about that. He contributes in all four goalie categories. He's pretty much the best at every single category. So he's definitely number one. Yeah, number two, I have Robin Lehner. He plays for Vegas. So he's going to get the majority of the starts since Marc-Andre Fleury's gone. He's always had good stats, so he's definitely a safe number two. I put Connor Hellebuyck at number three just because his stats have always been good. I think the defense got a little bit better over the offseason, so I definitely like him to have really good stats this year. And he's pretty much tied with Darcy Kemper for me. I just put him ahead of Kemper because Kemper's been getting injured a lot. So I would rather take the safer option in terms of injury history. But yeah, Kemper's at four. And then I have Semyon Varlamov at number five, just because he plays for a New York Islanders squad that's very defensive. So he's going to have really good stats. So that's definitely the reason for me.
For sure. And I guess we'll go over the next five. So I guess 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's going to be Frederick Anderson, Semyon Varlamov, Marc-Andre Fleury, Ilya Sorokin, and Carey Price for the Yahoo rankings. And we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, so for me, I have Marc-Andre Fleury at six. He's on a new team with Chicago, but I fully expect him to be a solid goalie once again. He was pretty much the best goalie last year. He won the Vezina Trophy, so yeah, he should be very good in Chicago. I have Frederick Anderson at number seven, and yeah, new team with Carolina, but they have a very good defense there, and he's a really solid goalie. He's going to get a lot of wins as well, so I definitely like him. I have Igor Shesterkin at eight. He's a solid starter. He plays for an up and coming Rangers team. He definitely should be really solid. I actually have Cam Talbot at nine. I feel like he's being undervalued, whether it's by Yahoo or by NHL.com. Yeah, he's definitely a solid goalie. He should be taken in the top 10. He's getting the majority of the starts. And yeah, he's just been really solid. The Minnesota defense is also very solid. There's not much else to say. I like him at number nine. And then I have Ilya Sorokin at number 10. I know he's not a starter, but he gets enough starts on a solid defensive team with the Islanders that his stats are going to be good. So that's why I put him in the top 10. You don't have to take him that early if you want like a surefire starter, but apparently he's going there. So yeah, I don't mind taking him based on his stats.
Yeah, I noticed that I guess Yahoo, they ranked Shesterkin really high. You have him a little bit lower, but both of you have Sorokin in the top 10.
Yeah, and then I don't have Carey Price inside the top 10 just because he was injured over the off season. He also had a rough regular season last year. So I just baked that in, as well as, Montreal not having Shea Weber for the whole season. The defense got a bit of a downgrade. So it's not like he's a bad goalie. It's just like there's goalies on other teams that will probably put up better stats just considering the teams that they're playing on.
Yeah, it's kind of like the exposure effect, but for goalies, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. If a goalie's on a better team, there's a chance he's going to get a lot more wins, and wins count in fantasy. So that's definitely something you want to look for.
For sure. And I guess we'll go over to the next five. So for the Yahoo rankings, that's going to be Cam Talbot, Ilya Samsonov, Philip Grubauer, Jack Campbell, and Yusei Saros. And we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, so I have Philip Grubauer at number 11. He is coming to a new team with Seattle, but they seem to have a solid defense core there. So Grubauer was like a top five fantasy goalie last year. So I feel like he can have a similar line in terms of statistics. So yeah, I have him at number 11. I have Ilya Samsonov at number 12 just because he's the starter for Washington. Washington's very solid as well. I know he had a rough year last year with COVID and everything, but he definitely should be a lot healthier this year. So I like him at 12. I have UC Saros at 13. Yeah, I put up amazing stats. Nashville has a good defense as well. He's the surefire starter there. He doesn't have another goalie behind him pushing him, so he's going to get the majority of the starts. I like him. I have Carey Price at 14. Um, yeah, we know how solid he was in the playoffs. We know how solid of a goalie he is. Obviously, he doesn't have as strong of a team in front of him, so I can't really put him in the top 10, but I do have him at 14 because he is still very solid. And then actually, I have Thatcher Demko at 15. I think that he's going to be a really solid goalie this year. He has been really solid. I know the defense got upgraded in front of him. That's one thing that I like. So I feel like with his talent, he can sort of emerge behind that more solid Vancouver defense. So yeah, I put Demko at 15.
For sure. I guess you're gonna go into I guess Jack Campbell in a second, but I guess I just wanted to see your thoughts on Yahoo ranking Jack Campbell in the top 15.
Yeah, it's fine, honestly. I know he's going to be splitting starts with Peter Mrazek, but he's more than likely going to be the starter. So I guess if I was 100% sure he's going to be in the starter, if he was going to be a starter, he'd probably be in like top 15 or maybe even top 10, just based on the stats he put up last season. But since we're not 100% sure how many starts they're going to give to each goalie, I just want to temper my expectations with both goalies for now.
For sure. And I guess we'll go over to I guess the next five. So for the Yahoo rankings, it's going to be Peter Mrazek, Spencer Knight, Kevin Lankinen, Mackenzie Blackwood, and Jordan Binnington. And we'll go to you for yours.
Okay, so I think mine's starting to differ a little bit as we get further down. I have Jack Campbell at 16. We just talked about him. Spencer Knight at 17. He's not the starter there. I think they're ranking him higher than Bobrovsky just because he had the better stats. I think the start should be about even with him and Bobrovsky. So we got to see, I guess, who's going to be the better goalie. I also think Knight's going higher just because he's younger. He's got more upside. And yeah, with Bobrovsky, sort of, I believe he's in his early 30s, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I have Knight at 17. I have Jordan Binnington at 18. I feel like he's being undervalued by a lot of people as well. He's really solid. St. Louis is a solid defensive team as well. So I definitely like him. I have Linus Ullmark at 19 just because he's projected to be the starter for Boston this year. He was solid for Buffalo last year as I believe he had close to, if not a winning record last year as Boston's goalie. And of course, when he was injured, they went through that whole slump. So he is very solid. He goes to Boston now, a team that really specializes on playing defense. So I definitely like him. And then number 20, I put Jacob Markstrom. I just feel like that he had a rough first year in Calgary last year. He is a solid goalie. They do have solid defense. They're overall pretty defensive team as well. So Jacob Markstrom is a surefire starter. He might actually get more starts than a lot of the goalies being drafted in this range. So that's one thing I like about him if you're looking for a lot of starts.
Yeah, I noticed that for the most part for the top 20, it's mostly there's like most it's like there's like a large amount of agreement. It's just like maybe a couple of players that I guess that are kind of different between you and the Yahoo rankings.
Yeah, because you also got to take into account average draft position. You don't want to be reaching for guys when you can get value on them. So if I really like a guy, I can't really pull him up super high in the rankings, if that makes sense, just because you want to balance that too. So, I mean, I really like Jack Campbell, but I'm just weighing in on some of the stuff with him, Binnington as well, different guys. You gotta sort of project, I guess, how the season's gonna go for them. I guess where they're getting drafted, that kind of thing.
For sure. And I guess we'll go over to the next five. So for the Yahoo rankings, it's going to be Thatcher Demko, Linus Allmark, Sergei Bobrovsky, Vitek Vanacek, and Jeremy Swayman. And we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, I have Mike Smith at 21. They pretty much buried him in their rankings, I believe. They had him really low. He's the starter in Edmonton. He's going to get a lot of wins. He had great stats last year. Although he's up there in his age, I don't understand why people wouldn't want to draft him for fantasy. Yeah, Mike Smith should be taken as probably your second goalie, maybe your third goalie if you get blessed with him like that. But so he's a solid second goalie for anyone just because of the team he plays on. I have Peter Mrazek at 22. We talked about the situation with him and Jack Campbell, I guess, splitting in Toronto. We don't know who the starter is. Jack Campbell should be going higher because he pretty much has taken that starting job in Toronto. How many more starts they give him than Mrazek is just going to be depending, but I still think Campbell's the better goalie. Number 23, I have Sergei Bobrovsky. We talked about him and Spencer Knight. Florida should be solid this year, so I think you can't go wrong with either goalie. I have Mackenzie Blackwood at 24. I'm a little lower on him, obviously, because New Jersey's not really that top tier team. Blackwood always has good stats, though. So if you take him as your second or third goalie, you can't really go wrong with him because he should be really solid. Then 25, I have Tristan Jarry. I feel like he's also being disrespected a little bit. He's going to put up wins with Pittsburgh. His stats were pretty solid leading up to the playoffs, although he didn't do too well in the playoffs. I think you can be okay with him on your roster. He's going to get a lot of starts as he is a starter. So that's one thing to sort of keep an eye on for him.
Yeah, I noticed with Tristan Jarry, they didn't even put him in the top 30. They put him in like the top 40, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, so if you're in drafts and you're looking for another starter as maybe your third goalie, you can definitely take a look at him because he might be overlooked by a lot of people drafting if they're drafting according to Yahoo's ranking. So definitely take a look at Jarry. I know he had a rough start to the season, but he proved to pretty much be a winning goalie on most nights as Pittsburgh got really hot at the end of the year and he was playing really well. I definitely think he will be solid again this year.
For sure. And I guess we'll go over the last five for the top 30 goalies. So for the Yahoo rankings, it's going to be Alex Nedeljkovic, Capo Kakinen, Jake Oettinger, Carter Hart, and Jacob Markstrom. And we'll go to you.
All right. So number 26, I have Vitek Vanacek. Yeah, he's the backup in Washington, but he's going to get a lot more starts than most people think, as I don't think Samsonov is going to play like 60 plus games. It might be like a 50-30 split kind of thing. So I think Vanacek will get into his fair share of games, and he was pretty solid last year. So I definitely like him. Carter Hart, I have at 27. Obviously, he should bounce back this year. There's no reason for him to be as bad as he was last year. The defense, I believe, is improved as well in Philadelphia. So I feel like you can get him in this range as sort of your third goalie. Take advantage of that. If he's your third goalie and he has a bounce back season, you could have three really solid goalies. So I definitely like Carter Hart. Kevin Lankinen, he's Marc-Andre Fleury's backup. He's one of the better backups in the league as he was Chicago's starter last year. Chicago's definitely much better this year. He should have really good stats and he should have his fair share of wins. So definitely take a look at him. I have Alex Nedeljkovic at 29. I know he's in Detroit, but Detroit is better defensively than most people give them credit for. Their main issue was not being able to score goals. I feel like if you get Nedeljkovic, you might not get as many wins, but the rest of the stats should be okay. So you could have him as like a third goalie and still be okay with him. And then at number 30, I have Cal Peterson from the LA Kings, just because he's projected to be the starter there. That Kings team should be better. They've improved better defensively, both up front and in terms of their defensemen. So his stats should be good. He might even start getting a lot of wins, just depending on how good this team gets. So I think I'm gonna put Cal Peterson at number 30.
Sounds good. It looks like for I guess for both top 30 lists, it's most like for the most part, it's kind of like an anticipation of, I guess, how many starts, how much ice time each goalie is going to get.
It's honestly what you prefer. I know some of these rankings, they take into account, I guess, categories more than, I guess, goalie starts. I feel like in a lot of leagues, they actually have like a minimum for goalie starts each week. Like you need a minimum of like 3 or 4 starts. So you can't like just grab a bunch of like really solid like backups, that kind of thing as your like 2 and 3. So like if your number one was like Darcy Kemper, and then you had like I don't know, like a Peter Mrazek and a Kevin Lankinen. So you had like two guys that might be backups. They might not even get one start each week. So you might be in tough some weeks where you don't get enough starts. So I feel like prioritizing starts, I guess balancing that and stats is important when you're drafting goalies, which is why, yeah, Mike Smith was too far. Tristan Jarry as well, Carter Hart, like I had to bring these guys up. They're starters, they're getting starts. They should have good years this year. So that's definitely something to balance. You mentioned Jake Ottinger. I didn't put him in the list just because there's so many goalies there in Dallas. There's like 4 different goalies. We don't know who's going to play. One thing I know for sure is that if Ben Bishop does return at some point this season, he is going to be the starter for Dallas, and he will most likely be in the top 10 to 15 goalies. So if you can stash him on your IR, probably should do that in case he does come back this season. He's going to be the starter for sure. He's getting paid like it, and yeah, he has always been solid for fantasy. So he's just one name that I'm like, okay, I gotta mention it. Because we didn't mention any Dallas goalies, whether it's Jake Ottinger, Braden Holtby, Anton Hudobin, we don't know who's going to be the starter. I don't know whether you can own them. We don't know who's going to be in the lineup. So, yeah, it's kind of tough to say. I guess teams I didn't mention from obviously the Sharks, we don't know their goaltending situation. Ottawa with Matt Murray, we don't know how well he's going to play, so I don't have him in the top 30. John Gibson for Anaheim, he's just not going to get the wins. And with that team, his stats haven't been as good, even though he is a solid goalie. Buffalo, obviously, their goaltending has been changed up, so we don't know who's going to start. Same with the Arizona Coyotes. I believe we covered most teams, I guess, outside of that. Yeah, I think I have at least one goalie from each of the other teams here. I think you mentioned other guys like Jeremy Swayman, Capo Kakinen, other backups that should be really solid. You can definitely take a look at them. And I guess for the most part, yeah, I think we've covered most of the goalies for each team. And yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts and my rankings.
For sure. I guess with that, we can kind of move on to, I guess, the top 60 defensemen. So I guess kind of same as the goalies, we'll go 5 by 5. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So I guess we'll start with the first 5. So for the Yahoo rankings, that's going to be Cale Makar, John Carlson, Adam Fox, Victor Hedman, and Quinn Hughes. And so for yours.
Okay, so for number 1, I have Cale Makar just because he's the most offensively talented defenseman in the league. He's playing on Colorado. He has pretty much all the exposure there. If you're looking strictly for points, he'll get it for you. I think outside of hits, if I'm not mistaken, he's like not as good, but every other category he's really solid. You're definitely getting the most from him. You have the highest upside with him. I think he's one of those guys where I don't know if you remember when Erik Karlsson was in his prime when he was captain of the Senators, like he was almost a point per game defenseman, which is pretty impressive. I feel like Makar's pretty much the only guy that could actually attempt that. Quinn Hughes is another guy, but I will get to him eventually. But yeah, Makar's one of those guys, whether it's goals, assists, plus minus power play points and shots from standard categories, you're going to get everything from him. So I like him at number 1. Number 2, I have Victor Hedman. He's another one of those complete defensemen. He won't score as much as Makar, but he will get hit. So you could take them either or, in my opinion. But the thing is, Hedman is already like in his prime. I feel like Makar's sort of entering his prime, so you sort of have higher upside with him. So if you like more upside, take Makar. But if you want, I guess, a safer option, I guess I like Hedman. Playing for Tampa Bay, obviously, he's going to be so solid. So yeah, he's at number 2. I have Adam Fox at number 3, obviously Norris Trophy winner from last year for Defenseman of the Year. He's pretty solid in pretty much every fantasy category. You can't go wrong with taking him at 3. I put John Carlson at 4. He's another one of those guys that just puts up a lot of points. He's on a solid Washington team. He's got exposure to top end guys. He's another one of those defensemen you can lock in as your number 1 guy on your team and just not feel bad about it. And then number 5, I put Aaron Ekblad actually. He sort of had his breakout season last year. He should improve on that this year. He's got a solid cast around him in Florida. The high end exposure is really there for him. He's playing in all of the top situations for them. His stats are going to be really solid as well. So I have him at number 5.
Sure. And I guess we can move on to the next five. So for the Yahoo rankings, that's going to be Aaron Ekblad, Alex Petrangelo, Morgan Riley, Charlie McAvoy, and Dougie Hamilton. And we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, so number 6, I have Quinn Hughes. I was going to talk about him. He's one of those guys that can sort of score at almost the same pace as Cale Makar. The only issue with him is just defensively, he's not great, so he's not going to get you hits, and his plus minus is not usually the greatest. So that's why I don't have him in my top 5. I feel like my top 5 is the guys that are like safe at every category, if that makes sense. They're not going to hurt you. So yeah, Quinn Hughes hurts you a little bit in some of these categories, but he scores enough for him to be number 6. Number 7, I have Alex Petrangelo. He's another good guy that can get like pretty much every category for you. I would have him higher than Hughes, but there is another defenseman on his team that I have pretty high up who might take away some of that like top end exposure from him. I have Dougie Hamilton at number 8. Obviously, he would probably be in my top 3 if he was still with Carolina, but he's gone to a worse team in New Jersey. So you kind of want to dial back your expectations with him. He still is really solid. So I do have him at number 8. Charlie McAvoy at number 9, he pretty much does everything for the Boston Bruins. He plays in every situation. He's got great exposure to top end players on that team. You definitely want to take a look at him. And then I have Seth Jones at number 10. He's just coming to Chicago for his first season there after being with Columbus for a while. Yeah, good exposure for him as well among top guys like Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, and others. Yeah, that Chicago team should be much improved this year. So yeah, I like Seth Jones at number 10.
Sounds good. I noticed that both the Yahoo rankings and you have Dougie Hamilton somewhere in the top 10. You rated Dougie Hamilton, I guess, a little bit higher. So I guess it's kind of like a good sign of New Jersey's progress and their rebuilding.
Yeah, not just that, but I feel like Dougie Hamilton, like I know when PK Subban went to New Jersey, he was sort of limited by their like the way they played, like a defensive style. But I feel like they were sort of rebuilding when he came in, but I feel like they're sort of on their way up now that Dougie Hamilton's coming in. So he shouldn't really be affected as much by the way they play. I feel like he should still be able to score pretty well, not as well as he did in Carolina, but he shouldn't be affected as much.
Sounds good. And I guess we'll move on to the next five. So for the Yahoo rankings, that's going to be Tyson Berry, Roman Yossi, Seth Jones, Miro Heiskanen, and Shea Theodore. And so we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, number 11, I have Shea Theodore. He's the other guy in Vegas. He's really solid in terms of point production. He also plays on top power play units, whether it's the first or second one for Vegas. Yeah, he's just solid in most of the categories. So I definitely like him at number 11. Number 12, I have Morgan Riley for Toronto. He could be a little bit higher, but I guess the only thing with him is that they have Rasmus Sandin, I guess, coming up. So I don't have him in my top 60 just because we don't know how many minutes he's going to get. But he could be stealing some power play time away from Morgan Riley. So that's my only concern for him. But or else, in everything else, Morgan Riley is really solid. I have Tyson Berry at 13 just because he can score with some of the best defensemen, just because he is playing on the Oilers. He has exposure to all of the top players there, like McDavid, Draisaitl, and others. So I have to put him really high up. I have Roman Yossi at 14 just because he can score a lot of points. As a defenseman, he's led Nashville in scoring multiple times, I believe. So, yeah, he's just one of those guys that he's going to score points no matter what. I definitely like him. And then Miro Heiskanen from Dallas. He's pretty much the main man there. I know John Klingberg will sort of be taking some of the exposure and power play time away from him, but Heiskanen's still solid enough to produce. So I definitely like that for fantasy.
For sure. And I guess we'll move on to the next five. So I guess for Yahoo, that's going to be Chris Letang, Jakob Chikrin, Tori Krug, Darnell Nurse, and Drew Doughty. And we'll go to you for your ranks.
All right, so I have Darnell Nurse at 16. I still feel like it's a little too low for him just because he can pretty much contribute in every category, including hits. He's really solid. He's one of those guys where like I have him at 16, but he could end up finishing the season in the top 10 and I wouldn't be surprised. So he's one of those guys that he's got a lot of upside if you're taking a look at him. Plus he plays on the Oilers, so there's more good exposure there. Chris Letang at 17. He's best defenseman on Pittsburgh, playing with Crosby, Malkin, all these guys. He should be really solid once again. Jacob Chikrin, he's probably one of the best players on this Arizona team. He's going to be playing in almost all situations for them. His plus minus might take a hit this year just because they are going to be rebuilding, but he should contribute in every other category. So the rest I wouldn't be too worried about. I have Torrey Krug at 19. He pretty much plays on the top power play for St. Louis. He's probably going to be their top scorer among defensemen. So you definitely want to look at him for sure. And then I have Drew Doughty at 20. No matter whether the Kings are a cup contender or a rebuilding team, he's always been solid. As I guess they make their come up again, he should continue playing really solid. And yeah, contributing in almost every category. So I like Drew Doughty at 20.
For sure. And I guess we'll go to the next 5. And I guess for Yahoo, that's going to be John Klingberg, Zach Werenski, Mackenzie Weegar, Jeff Petrie, and Ryan Ellis. And we'll go to you for your ranks.
Yeah, so I also have John Klingberg at 21. Yeah, he does pretty much everything. He's not very physical, so you're not going to get a lot of hits from him, but he'll play on the power play. He'll take shots, he'll score and stuff. So I definitely like that from him. I have Jeff Petrie at 22 because he is going to be the main guy in Montreal this year with Shea Weber being out for the year. He definitely will be playing in almost every situation for them. So you're definitely going to want, I guess, that top end ice time. And I guess he does score a lot of goals as well. So you definitely want that from him. I have Zach Werenski at 23. He's proven he can score goals as a defenseman. He is going to be on a not so great Columbus team, so his plus minus might get affected. But I think he's pretty solid for most of the other categories, so I wouldn't be too afraid to draft him. I have Thomas Chabot at 24. He's playing for this up and coming Ottawa team. His plus minus has been kind of bad in recent years, but Ottawa should be better this year, so that stat should be okay. And then other than that, most categories, he should be really solid for this team. And then I have Mackenzie Weegar at 25. He's that second guy in Florida. Honestly, just from exposure alone, he's going to be solid in my opinion. He's one of those guys that started off as like a defensive defenseman, but he's slowly finding his offense, and that's making him really valuable for fantasy. So definitely take a look at him.
For sure. I guess in terms of upside, where do you see Mackenzie Weegar?
I don't know if he could break into the top 20. It is possible considering he could have a really solid plus minus at the end of the year, and that could sort of drag his ranking up. Maybe shots, hits, potentially. Sort of like those kind of categories could bring him up a little bit. But yeah, I think he's in the right spot.
For sure. And I guess we'll go to the next 5, and I guess that'll be the halfway point for the defensemen. So for the Yahoo rankings, that's just going to be Thomas Chabot, Mikhail Sergachev, Jared Spurgeon, Ivan Provorov, and Neil Pionk. And we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, so I have Ryan Ellis at 26 and Ivan Provorov at 27, both Philadelphia defensemen. Ellis, because he should be the, I guess, top guy there in terms of scoring for Philadelphia, but Provorov has been the top guy this whole time. So I guess we don't know who's going to be the main guy. They both should be really solid. Provorov should bounce back this year as this Philly team should be better. So I sort of like both of them beside each other. I have Neil Pionk at 28 because he's sort of that main scoring option for the Jets. I feel like he's going to be playing in most of the top power play situations, and he should have the most points on the blue line for that team. So I definitely like him. I have Samuel Girard at 29. He's that next guy behind Cale Makar for Colorado. His plus minus was always really solid. He can hit as well. He can get shots, those kind of things. You definitely want Sam Girard in your lineup. And then I have Mikhail Sergachev at number 30. He's the next guy sort of for Tampa Bay behind Victor Hedman. So he should be able to get points for you. His plus minus will be solid. And he should see some power play time on the second unit. So definitely something to look out for him.
For sure. And I guess we'll go on to the next 5. So for the Yahoo rankings, that's going to be Ty Smith, Samuel Girard, Devin Toos, Matt Dumba, and Oliver Ekman Larson. and we'll go to you for yours.
All right, so from 31 to 35, I have Jared Spurgeon, obviously captain of Minnesota Wild. He should be playing in most of the top situations for them. He slowly improved in terms of his offense over the years, so definitely you want to take a look at him. I have Ty Smith at 32. He's probably the next defenseman behind Hamilton in New Jersey. Um, I mean, he's been improving ever since his rookie year last season, so I fully expect him to take another step forward this year. So I sort of like the value he can bring. I might have Tony DeAngelo at 33. He's one of those guys where, he could finish lower than this, or he could finish even higher than this, depending on how much he's used in Carolina. He's definitely their best offensive defenseman, but I guess depending on how much he's played is going to depend on his overall ranking. So I just have him in there at 33. 34, I have Alec Martinez for Vegas. He's another really solid defenseman for Vegas. He is going to score for you. So if you get him, he's pretty much contributing in almost every single category. So definitely going to be a solid guy. And I have Brent Burns at 35. He definitely is a solid scorer for the Sharks. Obviously, he did have a rough season last year. His plus minus might be a concern as well, since the Sharks aren't very good. But if he can sort of improve his point totals, I think he should be really solid, as he's going to be on the top power play for them. He's going to be pretty much playing in almost every single situation. So I like Brent Burns at 35.
Yeah, I noticed that the Yahoo rankings, they're, I guess, a little bit lower on Brent Burns, but I guess you kind of like the potential that Brent Burns has.
Yeah, well, he's proved it in the past. He can be a top five scoring defenseman. I mean, he can get hits. I feel like he is being ranked a little bit too low. If you're drafting him in fantasy, you're getting a solid player. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I guess the we'll see when we get to Brent Burns, but if you actually get Brent Burns at the spot that Yahoo has, then that's quite a bit of value.
Yeah, so if you get him as like your fourth or fifth defenseman, you have pretty much nothing to worry about, in my opinion.
Pretty much. And we'll go to, I guess, the next five for the Yahoo rankings. So that's going to be Vince Dunn, Alec Martinez, Tony Giangelo, Mark Giordano, and Matthias Ekholm. And we'll go to you.
All right, so I have Eric Carlson at 36. Similar situation to Burns. They both play for the Sharks. They both have big contracts. They both had off years last year. I think Burns just a little bit more valuable than Carlson because he can get a lot of hits. Carlson hits, but not as much. They both should be playing on the top power play. Both of them can score equally as well. So I like Carlson at 36. 37, I have Devon Taves, obviously playing for Colorado. He should be really solid, just like he was last year. Definitely needs to be owned in fantasy leagues. I have Matt Dumba at 38. I feel like he's a bit more offensive on Minnesota compared to Jared Spurgeon, but I guess overall in terms of like plus minus and stuff, I think Spurgeon will be a little bit more valuable. But yeah, Dumba is definitely still really good. At number 39, I have Mark Giordano, should be the top defenseman for Seattle this year. And then number 40, I have Vince Dunn, who should probably be the second most valuable defenseman for Seattle. I guess I don't know who's going to be more valuable. So I just ranked Giordano ahead because he does have more experience. He does have that proven equity. Vince Dunn, it's more like expectation that he's going to take the next step kind of thing. So yeah, I have them at 39 and 40.
For sure. And I guess we'll move on to the next five. So we have Brent Burns at 41, which is a lot of value. And Rasmus Dahlin, Matt Grelchek, Eric Carlson, and Ryan Suter. And we'll go to you.
Yeah. So for 41, I have Rasmus Dahlin. He can definitely be much higher if he sort of takes that next step with Buffalo. He's one of these guys that outside of plus minus, he can contribute in every category for you. So if he sort of gets back to what we know he can be, he's definitely going to be a steal late there. 42, I have Matthias Ekholm. He's sort of that second option in Nashville. He's going to get his fair share of points. His plus minus is not going to hurt you at all. And just overall, yeah, he's not as good of a scorer as Roman Josi, obviously, for Nashville, but he still is going to be solid enough. I put Jamie Drysdale at 43 for the Anaheim Ducks as a rookie defenseman. He's probably going to be the most valuable fantasy defenseman for this team. Plus minus obviously is going to be a category you're punting with this guy because it's most likely not going to be good. But outside of that, if he gets that top power play spot, if he can sort of generate offense for this team, he's going to be a really good steal in fantasy. I have Oliver Ekman-Larsson at 44, obviously coming to a new team in Vancouver. He's looking to sort of have a bounce back year. And I feel like Vancouver is more offensive than Arizona. So he definitely can have that bounce back year. He doesn't also have to be the first option either. He'll be behind Quinn Hughes. No pressure for him. I feel like his play should be really solid. And then I have Colton Parayko at 45. He's sort of that next guy for St. Louis in terms of offense behind Torrey Krug. I know I'll talk about Justin Falk a little bit later, but yeah, he also gets a lot of hits. He'll get shots. I feel like Parayko's a little undervalued as well. He's definitely really solid if you draft him in fantasy.
For sure. And I guess we'll move on to the next five. So that's going to be Justin Schultz, Jamie Drysdale, Jacob Slavin, Philip Peronic, and Jake Muzzin. And we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, so number 46, I have Bowen Byram. He's a rookie defenseman for Colorado. Assuming he's a regular in the lineup this year, he should be really solid. He sort of has that offensive upside that he can sort of grow into. So I like him at 46. I have Noah Dobson at 47. He is the most offensive defenseman for the New York Islanders. So if you're looking to draft a New York Islanders defenseman, I know a lot of people are taking Ryan Pulock. He's not going to get the offense for you. He might get hits, and that's about it, and a good plus minus. But Noah Dobson could be on the top power play for this team. He definitely could step into a lot of major roles for this team. So if you're looking for sort of a guy that's going to, be on a good team and potentially have good offense, he's a guy you can get really late. So I like him. I have Jake Muzzin at 48. Obviously, he plays for Toronto. They're a solid team. He's one of the more solid defensemen there. He can pretty much contribute in every single category, including hits. So I like him there. I have Rasmus Anderson at 49. I feel like he's very undervalued. He should be in almost every single situation for Calgary this year, whether it's top power play. And yeah, he's probably their most offensive defenseman as well. So I like him at 49. And then Matt Grzelcyk for Boston. He's sort of the next offensive guy behind Charlie McAvoy. So we saw what he could do last year. If McAvoy's hurt, he can step onto the top power play. And yeah, he can play really well. So I like Matt Grzelcyk at 50.
Sounds good. And yeah, I guess Noah Dobson, I think Yahoo didn't even rank him in the top 60. So yeah, he's probably going to be really low on a lot of draft boards. So you're going to be able to pick him up really late.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a guy you can target as maybe your fifth or sixth defenseman if you have bench spots. And then, yeah, you can roll him in. It'll be solid.
For sure. And I guess we'll go over to, the last five for the defenseman. And that's going to be Colton Parayko, Bowen Byram, Mike Riley, Adam Boquist, and Shea Weber. And we'll go to you for yours.
Yeah, I don't know if I draft Shea Weber. I don't think he's going to be playing the whole year. I have no idea why Yahoo's ranking him there. I actually have 10 more, so I'm just going to list all my 10 and then we can talk about it. I have Justin Falk, just talked about him. He produced quite well. I'm not sure why he's ranked so low on Yahoo, but yeah, solid. Philip Peronic from Detroit. He's probably the top option for them. He's going to play the most minutes, so I like him. Then I have Moritz Seider here. He's a rookie for Detroit. He should get a lot of opportunity, so I like him. And then Justin Schultz for Washington. He's sort of that second offensive guy behind Carlson. So, yeah, definitely take a look at him. I have Brett Pesce here. Yeah, he's probably the second most offensive guy behind Tony DeAngelo. So I sort of have him there. I don't know whether you want to take him or not, but he should put up decent stats for you. Then I have Josh Morrissey from the Jets. His plus minus is going to be solid. And yeah, he'll get shots, hits, those kind of things. So I definitely like him for that. I have Adam Boquist, a little bit lower than Yahoo, just because I don't think Columbus is going to be very good. I don't know how well he's going to do, but he's sort of the second guy there. So definitely take a look at him. I put PK Subban at 58. He could have a bounce back here with New Jersey with Dougie Hamilton coming there, Ty Smith developing. They have a good defensive core there. So PK could improve this year and get back to maybe a little closer to what he once was. So I like him there. I have Jacob Slavin at 59. His plus minus is good. He'll get hits. He's not very offensive. That's my only issue with him. So I can't sort of rank him any higher. And then I have Eric Chernak at number 60. Plays for Tampa Bay. He's going to get his opportunities to produce. So yeah, I like him there. And then yeah, that's sort of the top 60 for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, Shea Weber, he's ranked pretty high. I feel like Noah Dobson should definitely be taking his place, if not be ranked way higher. But yeah, I guess that's where they decided to rank him.
Honestly, for defensemen, I guess if you don't take defensemen early this year, it's not too bad. I know in other years it's been very dry. I feel like you can get a lot of good options later, especially guys with upside, like a Noah Dobson that could take the next step. There's Rasmus Anderson really far down. You can get guys like, Jacob Slavin if you like. Rasmus Dahlin's really low. There's a lot of guys that could break out here for defense. So you might not need to rush too much to take defense. You could maybe take goalies earlier, that kind of thing, and then sort of come back with some defensemen. You should still be pretty good for this year.
Yeah, for sure. There's even I think Justin Falk is like ranked really low in Yahoo so far. So if you don't, I guess, get enough defensemen, don't sweat it too much. I think it's going to be a lot more lenient this year.
Yeah, for sure. There's guys I didn't even mention. Obviously, Rasmus Sandin for Toronto. He could emerge as a top offensive guy. I mentioned Ryan Pulock for the Islanders if you need hits. I know we've always talked about Radko Gudas for hits. Assuming he's a regular in the Florida lineup, he'll be solid. But we didn't talk about guys like Keith Yandel for the Flyers, a new team. Gostis Bear going to Arizona. He'll sort of be the second guy there. There's just so many good options. Cam Fowler for the Ducks might be fantasy relevant. I don't know, just going through different teams. Noah Hannafin maybe for Calgary. There's a lot of solid guys. Even Jamie Alexiak could be fantasy relevant for the Seattle Kraken. So Tyler Myers for the Canucks. There's just so many names you could go through that could be really solid. So I wouldn't really stress too much at defense. Obviously, you need one of those like top guys, I'd say from Makar all the way to probably Darnell Nurse. You need like one of those guys in like my top 16 to sort of be your main guy. And then after that, you don't really need to stress for defense until you get to like maybe where Mackenzie Weegar is. Then you might need a second defenseman. So I don't feel like you need to like grab as many defense as you can. Just sort of take the draft as it comes to you. And I don't feel like you need to reach for defense too much this year.
Yeah, I guess that's going to be a big relief, especially to pretty much every fantasy player.
Yeah, honestly, for fantasy this year, the only thing you might need to reach for is goalies. For the other positions, you should just let them come to you and sort of take them like with value, in my opinion. Like you don't want to be reaching. Obviously, it just depends on your league, but it's one of those things this year. Seems to be a lot of good defensemen. So don't stress and let the draft come to you.
Sounds good. And I guess that about wraps it up this week for everything NHL. If you liked what you watched, you can subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, give us a like if you liked it, leave us a review, give us your comments on who do you think would be a top 30 goalie or a top 60 defenseman. If you liked what you listened to, you can follow us on Spotify, and you can also follow us on Apple Music and Google Podcasts. And if you need some sports picks, follow us at Fan Podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. And we'll see you guys next week.